without further ado, let's jump straight into it. I'm going to do a little screen share, and we're going to start off with Blender. Go live. Can you see that right? Is that right? And we are here. Hi. So this is an empty space, but soon it's going to be populated. So today is the 4th session of VRM Power. Thank you all for coming. Really super to see peeps kind of kicking in this one again. Apologies about getting the other upload a little bit late, but it's on now. So the last session was all about beats for my deets and how these things, how much detail we can put into our metaverse spaces and within these VRMs that we're creating. So that's a fantastic kind of thing, and you can kind of go over that and check everything that's been done. So as a quick reminder, I'm just going to show you what we did last week. I kind of like took some liberty to kind of like do a little bit of finishing off. So that's the little VRM that we've made. And if we go to the details, I'll kind of add a bit more colorization and splurging and stuff like that. And we also have this little dude ready as a VRM that we can use in the metaverse runs later on. So that's, yeah, like quite often times when you spend a little bit more time just like neating things up, you're getting a lot more kind of not just like detail out of the two-dimensional plane that we have to play with, but also kind of like thinking about creatively what that kind of works within the character itself as well. But today we're gonna deviate from the humanoid form. We're going to work ourselves into beyond human. So basically, we're going beyond humanoid forms and exploring what other things we can do with these VRMs. It's a little bit of a oxymoron having said that, because we are stuck to the humanoid form. All VRMs are based on a humanoid form, and that is what they're all kind of adjacent to. So we have the humanoid form takes the form of this little rig here. So you can see, like, if I move it around, that's basically my armature, our rig, and that's our humanoid form. So every single VRM is conforming to this in some kind of capacity. However, we can think of that being our basic, that we can attach things towards, maneuver things around, move things in a way that will kind of break ourselves out from it. So let me show you some examples, and to do that, we'll jump into this kind of mode. By the way, we're in Blender at the moment. So there's a humanoid form, and this character takes a very kind of straight on humanoid form. He's pretty much as human as he comes, apart from a little color. However, we can also go to so that is Agria, and then that is a nice little humanoid form, but kind of pushing things out a little bit. You know, we're kind of making it, pushing stuff out, getting like a little bit larger shapes, but it's still very, very humanoid. But then we can kind of like go all the way to Procure. Cool. So this character, this is a Procure, and we're starting to deviate from the humanoid right now, and it's a good example of how it kind of works. So we're going to look at like how these things are constructed. So if I jump onto here and here, we can actually see how things cometh together. Cool. So we've got like this little character here, and you can see that their fins and other things aren't there within, and they are, and they're basically all additions that we can kind of stick on to the form. So go here. There we go. So that's all exported as one, but these are kind of things we can play around with. So for example, we can make like things like arms super thin. We can tack additional things onto the form, like these fins and stuff. And we do that through a combination of different objects and weight painting, so they can kind of correspond and work together. So we'll look at like a couple other examples, and then I'll kind of dig into how we actually do it. So it's kind of because it's quite a big kind of subject, and there's many ways of doing it. So we're, for example, this Basileia, which Mona acquired recently, and what for, you need to check tomorrow Varietyverse. Hint, hint. That's like a secret alpha in a way. But we can see that this little part is separate from her head. And the way we do it is in the first session when we did squiggles. Basically, we have a connector which is connecting the objects together. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to be rigged. So, bam, if you turn it on, that's our connector. So that allows us to kind of like rig everything together nicely in mixing mode quickly, and then basically add that, take it away, and not use it as an export, and just have like that empty space. That is one way of we can do these kind of like, they can be either companions, little floating objects and stuff like that. So we're kind of breaking out for what's possible. And we can kind of push that further into this kind of character. So here we have an extremely large backpack, which forms like almost half of the character itself. You can go here, you can kind of see that. And that kind of like backpack is like a separate piece, basically. So the way we kind of would work these in, let me just, there you go. Sweet. Is that, yeah. So basically there we go, you can actually see it better. That is a separate unit altogether. That's one I made initially, that I've kind of like positioned in the same place, imported, but you can just build it in Blender as well, or whatever, say, and then placed it right in a position that I wanted it to be. And if I go back, like right there, and then basically I jointed all of these elements together, joined that to a part of the rig, and then weight painted it. So for like a solid object like this, if we go to our weight paint, if you remember how to get to the weight paint, it's basically armature, object, shift, weight paint, and we're in there. So you can see I painted it all red. So it kind of corresponds to, you can see to which bone here as well, to the middle bone here, just above the hip bone. So as he moves around, that's kind of moving with him. Kind of gives that kind of thing, and we can all test this out as kind of working on it. So that's important. So for like big objects like that, not necessarily big, but like static objects like that, just painted them to be affected. Red means it's fully affected. Blue means otherwise. So that would enable us to make sure that that is fully affected by the movement of the rig, and it's basically tacking that in. If you were to rig this like in Mixamo, for example, or other places, that weights would apply to this. So you basically have to then depaint it to repaint it. So it's much faster to have it separate if you're planning a character in a design stage, to having anything which is kind of static on it, and then to kind of attach that onto that. So that's like a nice little hinter, and immediately kind of breaking out. And you can kind of think like what other things can be like. They don't have to be like rudimentary like backpacks. You can have like wings, various spans, spikes, nodes, other things. So that's kind of another technique. And then we're going to go to our cool. So this is Agria, and this is quite an excellent kind of showcase. So you can see like she's got these bestial legs, which are done in multi joints. However, we can see where the actual rig is. Let me just jump over the weight paint. So the actual rig is still pretty standard humanoid rig, right? Like it's, you can see it's just there, humanoid. But from the side angle, it's straight on there. So that's like another way of doing it. So here we're basically putting in connectors. Let's see if I have the connectors in here. Yeah, so here you would, when we place it in, I'll show you in VR in a second, we're putting connectors here that we are rigging everything with, and then we're removing them, allowing us to have this kind of like quite cool integration. So if I just jump to the pose mode, go here, we can have, that's all moving together and it has like a very kind of cool kind of motion, which is breaking out from the humanoid form. It's working not unlike humanoid, and you may have to do some little bit of adjustments here and there when it comes to like especially the bottom feet, but it's a really kind of a cheat way, in a way, of doing it fairly quickly without having to build your own skeleton, whack it in, and then adjust it all in there to kind of get it all correct. I mean, you can do that as well. It just takes more time, and you're getting basically the same result. So in the creation of these VRMs, especially beyond humanoid, we're looking at ease of workflow, because we may have to troubleshoot all the way through if we make any mistakes, if anything's kind of broken, we have to go back and forth. So that makes a huge difference. So that is our Procyon, Agria, and Baros. And then we can kind of go even a step further. And this is one I've been using a lot recently. So here we go, Cyber. So here is kind of made in a very similar way as Squiggle, and also utilizing most of these techniques in one. So we have an empty torso basically here, almost nothing there. And that's using that kind of like a connector, and boom. So it's a little kind of like jumpsuit basically. Look at that. Looks kind of cool. Like he's like a little fluffy dude, like from Big Hero 6. But that connector is what allows us to basically rig it without a problem in a very simple way. And then we utilize the same thing with a connector as we did with Agria's feet. So these are not as bestial, but still a bit, out there, and having all these empty places which would trigger out a rig. So basically we fill them in with connectors, and that also works to its head. So if we grab, if I, grabbing, oh, because I'm in pose mode. modes. So if I grab here, like we've adjusted the head, so it's like very small, the actual things that affect it. And then if I jump to the pose mode now, you'll see the head is affected just by this little thing, rather than being fully, and get a little bit of influence on the neck. So that's like another way of breaking out from it. And if we grab one of these boys and move it around there, like these are done as like the wings are done as a solid ring in the same way the guy with the backpack, Baros, was done. So that's the same kind of technique, which kind of does here. And it basically is a piece of mesh, which is joined to another piece of mesh. And that is also, if we jump here, it's going to be mostly red, if I recall. So boom, boom, and weight paint. There we go. So I made it like a little bit orange. So I got like a little bit of bend if he's really twisting, but it's pretty much like 84% rigid, which is kind of cool. But also this kind of stuff means that if we keep all of our elements separate, it allows our weight painting to be really efficient. So not only does it help us making really kind of complex two-dimensional and UV materials, it also allows us to kind of like create these weight painting things to kind of break out from the humanoid, make something more interesting. I mean, humanoids are interesting as well, but kind of use our imagination to the full height and see what we can create with it. So having that as a separate thing, it means we can make it rigid, and I can kind of like jump into another thing which is maybe not as rigid. So for example, the place which is adjacent to, which is this larger thing, put a boof, that is bam. So that's affected. So it's affected by everything else, even though it's a relatively hard surface model that has an effector in it, because I wanted it kind of like to work in a way that it will fill the space as opposed to get extra gaps. So these are all the kind of basically broad ways of breaking out from our humanoid form in the most simple ways. So we can take all of that and push it further and see how far we can actually break out. So this is a little collection I've kind of been working on. In this one I built earlier. Basically, these are the bad guys for the Better Droid. And we can see like all of them are almost experiments in each different way of breaking out from the humanoid form. So here and these are kind of featured in the VRM Power trailer as well. So here we can see like got a little tail there. The legs are kind of that bestial kind of construction. If we look from the top, the arms are doing the same thing. So they've got like multiple joints in them, which kind of breaks all that up. Like the elongation of the neck. So, and kind of those techniques of doing fillers and stuff like that are present here, and the hard surface additions of meshes. So that's one thing. Like this guy's got a little tail. Tails are quite a good one. Hard surface backpacks, tentacles. Like basically here we're sticking a head in, and then we're building this hood on top of it. So the hood is going to build separately and added onto it, like we did that the color or the headdress on Basileia. So these are the other kind of things you can actually build things on, and they can kind of break up that form to kind of get this kind of stuff. So the head has motion in the middle, but that's like a full-on hard surface hood, like standard wings. Kind of play around with those, and then also kind of looking at having multi-limbed creatures, so we can go beyond one limb. And here, if I remember correctly, this is all a little bit of work in progress, but basically I've kind of I've made it so they're corresponding to each other. So rather than having like additional spring bones, which would work independently, I wanted it to kind of for the top to recommend to the bottom. So it's like a four-limbed, and it's like a kind of a cheat way of doing it while retaining the humanoid rig and adding additional motion with intent. And something like this is something I'm working on for the quadruped that hopefully I will solve at some point soonish, because that's like the holy grail effectively of it. Or like here, like as I said, we can add additional kind of things. So these are all kind of added to the object. Auto pose like a normal mode. So they're kind of added to the object, to the rig. So if we, oopsie daisy, if we cruise in there, they'll be affected by the armature. So as it moves wholly with it. It's joined, if I'm correct, to the neck collar, so to the neck bone. And then in the middle, like there's no connections here, and I'm sure like some people made like these VRMs already, but the nice way of like doing it yet again is creating that connector ball, sticking it in there, and then just removing it when you're rendering a model and putting it into VRM. And then ultimately, this has a little target here, you can kind of add like a bunch of stuff. So, you can break out the entire middle, like increase the head and stuff like that, add additional limbs, connect them together to the stuff, and then play around with the spring bones, which you're going to jump in a second, and then play it together and how it all kind of connects together. So you kind of create this kind of quite weird and wild troop, really kind of like trying to break out from the humanoid form in various ways, both through skeletal manipulation as well as the connectors, and working on the connections between hard surface additions, mesh to mesh, and adding basically additional joints. So it's kind of like an overview, interested. And so like all kind of some nice colorization on them as well. Yeah. So this is like an overview basically of how to break out of here, how these things come together, how they're all kind of like integrate and everything else. And then we're going to start doing some practicalities. By the way, if you have any questions or anything like that as I'm going through, feel free to kind of like just ask literally, because I may not see the messages when I'm fully in the app. So that'll enable me to kind of like test it out. Fantastic. Cool. So today we're gonna basically build a little bit, and we're gonna create a couple of things like adding spring bones, possibly with a tail, and adding a companion. And I think for that we'll use our Hoft dude, or as I started calling him, Splurge, that we were working on last week. Fantastic. Cool. So without further ado, let's jump into virtual reality. I'm just going to change so you can actually see where I am at. Screen share, change windows. And cool. Go live. Sweet, we're in here. Fantastic. Let me just change the recording. So we're actually having some visual recordinations, and it's going from here. Where is it gone? There it is. OBS has been utterly weird today, but c'est la vie, right? So as we enter the worlds of virtual, or as I enter it, and from the pass-through into full-through. Cool. So we've been here before. This is a kind of my tool of choice for construction, and it's also kind of fairly good for kind of demonstration purposes as well, because it's super instant. So anything I do, you can see it immediately, add notes, visually kind of stuff, and it can be like very quick and active in the way we can kind of communicate. And also when I'm fully in here, I'm kind of fully here. So basically shout. Otherwise I'll just keep rabbiting on. And let me just do a quick set. And here we go. And just make sure that we have straight to camera for control comfort. So you're not getting a weird kind of combinations over there. So as I mentioned, all of those models, we can actually see how they're actually built here. And if I just turn this on, we have like the full poly view. So that's the Agria model. And you can see like that's the connectors right there. And they're basically exported with them through. It kind of gives us the rigging for the full foot, because these kind of, I mean, studying like animals and stuff, like that's basically their foot, and she's kind of standing on like her toes effectively, which is how like quadruped animal walk generally, or an ostrich. And you're kind of getting that kind of finish from it. So that acts as a foot, and you kind of like almost playing around with how they can interact together. So you get kind of feel at the end. And the same thing with a head connector there. So let me just show you that. And gotta be careful not to move too quickly in virtual, because I tend to like do that. And this is kind of same thing with the cybers that we kind of had a look at earlier. So they are super complex kind of models with lots of stuff going on. Very low poly, but you can see kind of how the additions have been done, where the connectors are going to go in, and you kind of like play around with breaking out from that part. Same here, that's the big connector in the middle that kind of gets removed in the yellow. And it's also useful to color code if you're kind of making stuff. And these are all kind of separate to be exported to separate additions that are then joined to the color itself. So they kind of like come together as one thing. And he's then can work nicely as a cool little VRM. All the layers. And then the four-limbed in a kind of similar way. It's kind of like also when we are creating anything which is four-limbed, and if you want it to be affected by this, by just weight painting effectively, it's really useful to try and get the connections in the same, let me just get something you can actually see, in the same place. So if we have, oops, daisy, we have here, cool. So that and that's basically your elbow joints, and then your hand joints going to be coming like bam and bam. So you're having fairly similar-ish things. So if it's being affected by it, it's kind of pulling it on. And then these things can be fairly kind of rubberized at the end because you're not going to see it in the same way. So you kind of like thinking when it comes to design, how those things can connect together, how they can work. Now that they work to also storytell additional things rather than just being straight forward. And the same thing will apply to something like this, which is the same structure as the backpack. So the backpack doesn't have to be joined together. It can just be like a large object like this. And that can literally be, think of it, just got a couple of cables additioned there, which are all kind of basically rubbered. So that's like green to turquoise blue. You're weight painting. And you're kind of getting, you have to get like another object breaking out a humanoid form and kind of really playing around with. Because, I mean, you can have like a really tiny like model here with a huge thing behind it as well. So kind of, I think like it'll be really cool to see a lot more VRMs, avatars, which are breaking out of the human formation, looking at how they can integrate in different ways, being really playful about what they are, and kind of just having fun with it and seeing how we can populate the metasphere in all wondrous ways. You know, you can like add tentacles and everything else. So these are all possibilities that we can play with. And I mean, a way of doing these rather than just having them as kind of multiple spring bones, which is, they'll also work on that, is you can literally just like basically weight paint them. So they're super rubbery. And they kind of achieve very similar result out of that, but you're not using all of that processing data. So it's kind of like try to get it all optimized and nice and small, which all kind of works. So, and you can also kind of like try breaking out from the humanoid by having like a structure there. So, you know, there'll be a neck there and everything else, but we're kind of doing this big thing over there and adding additional kind of structures. So let us create, export, and make. Boom. Just jump through summaries, no more. That can go. So if you're here before, we worked on this little dude. I was kind of playing around with adding various mutations and permutations and things like that. But I think like for today, for kind of like, we'll do something that's fairly straightforward, but we'll dive into how it's being done. So he's got like, you know, he's got a little arm, which is kind of like rigged together with that, little wings and stuff like that. Like tentacle, and let's build him with a tail, and then we'll export him, and we can start to permeate, and then see what we can do. So I'm just gonna take all of these off. Extra arm, tentacle, and tail. Tail whip. Let me just take that. And so kind of like, let's build like a really large tail, and then we'll basically make that into a spring bone thing and rig it and add some bones into it in Blender. Oops. Oh God. Cool. I'm back in. So that went through a weird pass through there for a second, which is why Oculus Quest 2 isn't as good as the other ones. the button's far too close to my nose, which turns it off. Hopefully, it wasn't too much shock. So we'll make like a tail for it, and I think like maybe like that's clear. Like a large kitsune-like tail would be quite cool, like a big fox tail. So let's go small, let's go big, move, get it like a rotation, and doodle-doo. Cool. So that'll be the tail we're gonna do stuff with. Just make it a little bit more taily, so it'll be kind of cruising to bottom, and we'll just adjust it. So it's kind of like really looking at how we can break through, and once you kind of know how it works, it's just basically troubleshooting and going forward. So how we can also check out about our sizes. So we've got 12.6K. That's pretty good. And that's like a lot of polys. So let's, for sake of posterity, and we want to be efficient with this kind of stuff. We may add some other stuff as well. Let's just optimize that a little bit. Again, it's going to be fairly solid, so I'm going to keep that a bit more rubbery, but they'll give us something that's fairly good. And let me just move that go in there, get it a little bit there, and yeah, that's. And let me just add some more optimization. Cool. There you go. And is it going to be super green? Probably not. Let's get it working so it actually works with the rest of the. Oops, actually, let's go the other way around. Get like a green end. Yeah, fine. A foxtail anyway. Cool. So we got the character there. He's got like a foxtail and everything else, and that's pretty sweet. But we can kind of start breaking out from the humanoid form, like we mentioned before. So, and it's going to be useful in showing stuff. So let's just like work on his head. So let's get his head a little bit smaller. Let's get it a bit higher up. Let's get it over there. Cool. And I'm just going to grab his neck. So this is a great example how it actually works after the rigging. So I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to we're going to just give him like a big weird neck kind of stuff. And we just stick the head back on. There we go. So that, when we basically export it, that's going to be like a weird broken rig. So we have to adjust the neck and those parts, and which is excellent showcase. And I'm just going to get it to actually looks like he's meant to look like that, as opposed to like we just bounced him off a bit. Put a boom, delete that, copy paste, bam, bam, sweet. That is good enough. That is cool. So he's looking more bestial. That's cool. Happy days. So we got like that, and then we can export him. Now, when where's my all the way there, sneaky. Now, when we're exporting these things, as I mentioned before with the backpack, that's going to create a little bit of a mayhem in Mixamo. So that Mixamo will just interpret that as another object behind it and will rig it like it's linked to the bones. And we don't really want that, so we're going to export it separately. So I'm going to hide the tail and just going to export the character as he is in a kind of like as a standard form as you can get it. So we can do that quick rig in Mixamo basically. Like so look, you can always rig it yourself from scratch, but it just takes time. Just naming those bones takes time. So I'm gonna just jump in here, export FBX, no need for materials. We'll check bake transformations. Give him I'm gonna call him Splurge because he's rainbowy. Splurge T. Cool. And export. Awesome. And then I'm gonna just take the tail, whack it on a different thing. Change it off. Sweet. And I'm just going to export tail separately as a separate object, and we're going to add it in Blender once the character is rigged. And we just go to Splurge T tail. Would have thought that that was there for a reason. And we're just going to export that, and happy days, we're in. Super duper. And also, I've also built a little super easy square companion that I've exported earlier. So we're going to try and stick that one in as well, because you can actually kind of see how super easy that is to kind of combine together. Fantastic. So this is our VR stuff. Let me just save, because always save. You never know. And that's what we're going to be working with today. So we're going to have like a nice kind of weird metallic bushy tail for this character to kind of cruise through. So we'll have Got some kind of fun runs. Hopefully they're all going to come through together. No reason why I shouldn't. Fantastic. So I'm leaving the virtual world. And let me just make sure that actually you can just see something as opposed to the virtual world without standing. So let me just share the screen. Change windows to... Cool. So we are mixing. So that's the guy I did earlier. Kind of just trying out various things and stuff like that with all these other kind of mutant things. But if it's gonna actually show you what actually happens with it. So if I get him to kind of like, let's just have a little dance, and you can see that all the other elements are basically being taken as a part of it. So they're all being affected by the bones and rigs, and you can see how they will be affected. But the whole hand and stuff like that, with some more careful kind of weight painting, you can achieve like multi-limbed creatures, which is great for like spiders and stuff like that. So, you know, you can have like the top end to be controlling this plus the bottom one as well. So you're kind of like really kind of thinking about how to break from that deformation you initially have. But you can see how terrible the tail looks. It's just like not there. So, you know, some positives, some negatives. So we're going to like make something super cool and that's very effective and that can kind of work. So I'm just going to upload the character that we've exported. So I'll just keep him dancing well. So he's got some kind of entertainment. I'll locate these files. Here we go. So we're just going to put the splurge guy in rather than the tail. Tail we're going to put separately in, and everything should be correlated size-wise. And it's quite nice, 107 kilobytes. I can live with that. Upload character. Oh, yep, that's the right one. Back it in. And a little bit of processing, and here we go. So the smaller characters, the faster the process as well, which kind of really does help. And it kind of, especially for like VRMs, there's no reason for them to be huge at all. So we're just kind of trying to get them like as small and conductive as possible. So we're just doing like a super quick rigging. Like, be super precise with it. Just now I'm just turn the symmetry off and adjust that knee. So in design stage as well, you can kind of like make sure that you're having things combined together. Like here I've got these lines where I want the knee center to be. So knowing that, I'm kind of making that. So here I moved his head a little bit when I was adjusting this. So his head is actually a bit cocked than what it should be, but that's good enough. That'll do pig. And we're gonna go straight to the next, and that's gonna rig it for us. So we're gonna have like this this long neckoid. It's gonna be balanced with the tail, and it's all gonna look much better, especially when he's running. The tail should be kind of kicking in on various sides. Oh yeah, like hi Universe. Yeah. Capoeira. Yeah, it's a friend of mine used to train that. Like wild martial art. Super fun. So here we go. That took no time. He's in. Happy days. And just go to next. Next. Let's get our neckoid. Sweet. Excellent. And I don't want that. I want it to be T-pose. So just make sure. T-pose comes as standard, but we've got him dancing. There we go. T-pose will do. Fantastic. Download. When you're downloading T-pose, make sure it's with skin. There's no need for frames per second. It's not relevant here, but you want skin, otherwise you're just going to get the skeleton. And downloading. Enough for me to come grab some iced coffee. I don't know where it's you guys, but it's super humid here. Humidity is off the charts. And it's, remember, that's T-pose. Cool, that'll do. And then let's jump into Blender. So I'm gonna change screens. There's a lot of screen changing tonight. And bada-bum. Fantastic. We are back in Blender for recording, and just make sure you can actually see what I'm doing. change windows into Blender. Sweet, we are in. Fantastic. Cool. So this is one we had earlier. I'm going to just take them off. Make sure I'm here, and we're gonna import our things. So I'm pretty sure it's in my downloads. T-pose, latest one. Cool. Done. Sweet. We can see that neck has changed and stuff like that. So having these visual cues, different characters kind of helps in here as well. And whenever I'm doing any of these, I like to kind of have like tidy work. So new collection and splurge T. Splurge with a tail. Maybe we'll have a splurge without a tail. So we have that. That's all cool. Happy days. And there's, before we start adjusting the rig, I'm going to import the tail. And boom, boom, boom. Import FBX. And there's going to be in a different folder. Quill, VRM, splurge tail. Boom. And fantastic. Comes straight right where we want it. That's super right. It's awesome. Happy days. Cool. Right, now the fun times begin. So, thing number one, we need to adjust this kind of head. Because actually, that's not too bad. I think it's going to like change a lot more, but that's not too bad how it did it at all. That's fantastic, actually. Usually it does it a lot worse than that, but we can see how the bone is shaped like that. We ideally want it to be in line with the neck, because, you know, like it makes more sense, right? But I'm impressed actually this worked. Much better than I thought it will do. Hopefully I can still demonstrate what I intended to do. So let me, gonna take the bones, I'm gonna jump into edit mode, press tab, and I'm in the edit, and I'm gonna grab that little thing there, and go here, and I'm gonna put it around the nape. So it's there. I'm just gonna adjust basically things so he just kind of works better, and that should be like that. It's kind of more the way things work, right? As opposed to approximations. Because the way that the kind of dirty rigs go, they just gonna take everything in a straight horizontal line almost, or vertical, depends where it is. And we want some more nuance. So let's take this. I'm gonna rotate that a little bit. Just take that, go it up. So if you take the lower part, it basically we change the scale of it, but also you can just change the scale by just pressing S and scaling it up. But here, there's not much we need. Go here, and this is basically just our little grabber. I like to have the grabber at a place where I can grab it. So more finicky. Cool. So we've adjusted the bones to kind of fit and everything else. And we're going to have a quick peek at the weight paint to make sure that the weight paint is what we want it to be, as opposed to anything else. So I'm going to grab that. And we kind of just check the head. Head is going to be one thing, right? So check the head, go to weight paint. And if I grab the head, right, okay, so not quite. So see, head is like really squishy. And we don't really want it squishy, but that's because we moved it up so much. And press Control. And when you press Control and click on it, you actually get to manipulate the bone and see. So here, that's not actually bad. Like I don't mind like with the squishiness at the bottom. But here, I want it to be a lot harder. So we're going to go to our weights. Just put it at 80. Go here, straight on. I'm just going to do it, maybe more. 0.9. Fantastic. And because I'm lazy to kind of change stuff, I can just go the distance and kind of just do that. Just basically do it all fairly quickly so we can get it moving, and that'll be fine. Fantastic. Cover all our bases, and I want a little bit of flexibility impacted, maybe right around the bottom of the nape. So I'm just going to do that. Like there, 0.7. And basically, when you're deviating from humanoid, this is kind of what you do. There's a lot of little kind of trial and errors, and the more things you have, the more things you get to do. Where was I? Here we go. And yeah, I mean, you can paint on both sides because his head is not quite straight on. That didn't help me. So that is great. And at every point you want to check out your things, you can kind of jump in there. Fantastic, cool. So that's adjusted. I'm going to just check the neck. So same thing again, select the armature, select the neckage, go to weight. They do say good things come to those to weight. And yeah, this is great actually, it's absolutely fine. Ooh. If I was to be really finicky, I would probably take the color off and separate it and stuff like that. But you know, you kind of get the idea. To kind of get like a fully finished VRM for products and for sale and stuff like that, I generally like to kind of spend a lot more time and get everything super tight, so everything is where I want it to be basically. There are no kind of weirdnesses. For the purposes of building fast, we break stuff. Cool. So that's excellent. And now you wonder, like, well, what about the tail? Tail is just separate because it's not joined to anything else. Like if you grab that, like it's just there. It's not doing anything. So what we want to do is we want to get that tail onto this little dude. And to do that, we need to add bones, maybe 2 or 3, and then join those bones to the thing. So I'm going to go to the edit mode. And you can either like take a bone and copy it and add it on, or you can kind of create a new bone. So I think like where I'm going to add it like probably to the hip bone because it's the tail, right? So let's go for Control A. Oh, see daisy, there we go. Got a bone. That kind of gives us a very generic bone. So just do and maneuver it where I want to. I want it to be like around there. Grab that. Just gonna make sure it's this. And you know, it's a lot of it is kind of adjusting stuff like that. And stuff around. Sound cool. And just getting into rotation, getting around that little kind of neck there. And cool. Fantastic. And maybe I can just, there we go. And then to get another bone, we're just going to press E. And whoopsie daisy, we're growing bones. And just get it to the fluff point of the tail. And another E. And here we go. We are, they're about sticking out there. We've got our bone structure. That's fantastic. But these bones aren't connected to these bones. So we all know the song. It's got to be connected, right? That bone's going to be connected to the other bone, whatever the other bone is. So let's connect them. I'm going to take this, basically parent them together. And oopsie daisy. Get to one of our bones, get it there. Oops, parent. So just right click parent, or you can just press Control P and make. And we're going to keep the offset because we want that to be at a position where it is. Otherwise, it will literally come to where the circle is there in the hip bone. Cool. So that's connected. And if you want to check whether it is connected, we can just kind of like, oops, no, come out of the edit mode. And if we move this around, that's connected. But it's not connected to the tail. So what do we do now? Cool. So if you remember how I mentioned, we can either add something to be connected to another mesh, or we can have it separate. Now, tail is kind of growing out. This one is anyway. So I want to connect it. I'm going to connect it to the lower spine. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take tail, take spine, and I'm going to do Control J. And I've just got this joined together. Actually, let me just undo that. I just want to get it a little bit more tucked in. Boom. So sweet. Around tail, increase a little bit there. I want it a little bit more tucked in. Like that. Fantastic. Cool. And we just do this, do that, Control J. Woo, we got it. Sweet. Now, weight painting. If we go on the armature, it's selected and the tail is part of the armature. Yes, winner. But how are we going to weight paint this? So we go to select that object and we go to weight painting. We can see if we select the tail, it's unaffected. Like none of it is affected at all. So we want to basically affect it. And the way we can do that is just literally by starting painting on it. So we got our weights, and I just want to put 100% weight on one, and I want to block out the weight. So I want that little part there, the little joint start at the root of the tail to affect everything. So I'm just gonna get it all red, just to start off with. And a little tip when you're doing this stuff in Blender, if you go further out, like actually the accuracy increases. Weirdly enough, you don't get any kind of places that are missed out, which isn't so much a problem with low poly models, but as you increase your polys, it does count, and you get like yeah, you just don't lose as much stuff. Cool. So that's affected, and we can just see whether it's affected. Yeah, it is. Happy days. We're winning. That's awesome. Love it. Cool. And then we're just gonna take this little thing, see where that affects that. I don't want that to affect the bottom of the nape of it, right? So just hit it there, let's go 0.65. I'm just gonna, there we go. So it's gonna come in. Otherwise it's all uneven. I want a little bit of flexibility in there as well that comes from the hip bone as well. So we've got a little bit of kind of that fluster. Just because you can keep kneading these up, but it's just kind of to get it working. Cool. So that's that. And well, none of these are working either. So we kind of want to make sure that each part is affecting each part. So let's jump onto this other one that's not affected, but we're on 6.5. Let's go to 0.5. It's middle of the tail. It should be fairly flexible, right? Just see from point, and there we go. Yeah, happy days. And it immediately basically gets affected. So that's super nice. Other side. And yeah, it's all pretty much there. Okay, it's relatively simple. I mean, these things can take quite a long time to get them right. As anyone who's enjoyed weight painting, I say enjoyed, it's you can see like it works. And low poly is especially difficult because it works on vertices, and you can always wondering, shall I add another loop cut? Is it going to be worth it? Because you can easily get away with less. And same thing here, unaffected, get affected, to the lymph, bam. And you kind of just take one advice, go from this thing. Wow, just notice it's so weird, like how the visual progress slow down when you record them. And this is so it's too much, but we want that end tip to be fairly hard. So we're gonna go straight to red, and I'm just gonna give it a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just like that. So you have like that kind of tip that's a bit more harder at the end, so it kind of stays a shape and doesn't change as much. It's too much, but and yeah, it's weight painting. It's kind of literally watching the pixels dry on the weights. Cool. Let me just tidy everything up. So there's various ways you can do this. This is just like paint mode. You can go to like this blur mode, is it? Yeah, this is blur mode. And you can just blur it up, which is just neatening things up a bit to kind of equalize your stuff. In low polys, kind of blurry can kind of work fairly well. Just make sure it's all creating something that kind of works together. And same here. Bada boom, bada boom. expand that on. Because we're just going to try to get a model that can work. A new VRM to populate the metasphere with for today, and also to kind of learn how we can build these. Because if you can build a tail, you can build a tentacle. If you build a tentacle, you can build a wing. If you can build a wing, you can build a full new structure behind it. So that's the reasoning behind it, effectively. You can see that's over there, and maybe that's too affected over there. I want it to be a lot softer, especially for that button point. So let me just go back to the paints, fiber. I don't mind getting it fairly flexible with just a small amount of rigidity. It should be a fluffier tail after all. Fluffy times. All right. Cool. And yeah, as I say, like you can spend like inordinate amount of time kind of trying to get it perfect. Kind of going, oh, maybe I can get it over here and there and everywhere, but it's just enough so it works. Don't forget the bottom parts either. And and whenever you kind of work on it, you can just kind of check it out and see whether anything's broken. So that's all right. I can live with that. And it's basically control click. And well, it could be better, but it's more or less there. I'll probably just a bit more rigidity in the middle. So I'm just gonna put a bit more flexibility on the sides. There we go. And just on the other side. And didn't want to do that. 0.42, the magic number, of course. I'm just getting, there we go. Just like that. Just some happy little weight painting. Some happy little trees in the metasphere. I'm just going to go here and just going to apply that there as well. Just going to get it all in there. And the thing with weight painting is that sometimes it feels like you dig a hole to fill a hole. But happy days. Awesome, cool. So we got it. By Jove, we got it. And we can go here. Those are just like vertices. Going to check out, which is basically this part here. Excellent. And oh, apologies. No one said anything. I usually increase my visual things. You can actually see what I'm doing. This must have been like really hard. There we go. You can actually read what's happening now. Sorry about that. Like I totally didn't realize. Yeah, having text kind of helps. So we have the character there. He's all there. He's got a little tail. Everything is nice and hunky-dory. And sweet. Let me just jump to the weight paints. Awesome. So that's all good. He's all ready for the next stage. So the next stage is we're going to basically stick him in Unity and get him in playing, get him in there. I'm just going to copy that collection, duplicate, and at another time we'll add some textures and stuff like that to him. We'll just keep him a fairly blank slate as it is. And I'm going to take all of the objects because optimization, right? And I'm going to just do a quick Control J, join it all together. So we have just one. That's usually what happens to an A. Let me just label it as Splurge T. Awesome, sweet. So we've got a character, we've got a little tail, happy days. This is y'all working. And let's get to the next stage. So if I'm correct, it'll just be plain vanilla. Yeah, nice plain vanilla. Happy days. Sweet. So we can select that and export it as an FBX into the desired space of your choice. VRM presents. Nice. And merge. Which number of months? Splurge tail, workers and stuff. I'll go for splurge 2. T. And selected objects. I don't want to export any baked in just in case you've been playing around with it. And that should be coming straight out. Happy days. And now it's time for us to jump into Unity. Let me just change the screen share. If I remember correctly, I need to do something else. So I need to go to the full screen, and because Unity does weird things otherwise. So I'm going to go to, let me just get recording first, otherwise it's gonna be super odd. Cool. So Unity is recording, and screen 1, gonna go live. Cool. You can now see yourself, seeing yourself. And if I go to full screen of Unity, you can see Unity, right? And let's go full. And can you let me know you can see Unity?
Yep.
Fantastic. Cool. Excellent. Because I don't know. Cool. Excellent. So here's that one I built earlier. You can kind of see that weirdness was happening there. So let me just hide that. And nope, that's something else. And there's some other stuff in behind there. Cool. Many joys. So I'm just gonna basically just drag and drop quickly in there. Projects F, and there'll be VRM Power presents. What do they call it? Bridge 2, right? And should be correct. Straight in. Super duper. And do. Oh, wait. Where's the. I thought I just dragged them in. Maybe I didn't. That's not the same one. Let me just see what we're gonna do. I thought it's splurge. I put a splurge -2 instead of splurge 2. Yeah. Easy mistake to make, right? It's all these things. Here we go. You can see it in the corner here. He's got a fat tail. Fantastic. And as usual, we're gonna make sure we apply humanoid. Apply. Happy days. That's all good. It means our rig is fine and everything else. So no problem with that. And when we're doing like these things, we can also check our configurations here. So we have everything's rigged. You can see that these are unaffected this time, and we'll come how to affect them together. And if you want to really flick, you can work around with these things as well and mess around with lots of like twists, open muscles and stuff. There's lots. Feet spacings. Can't even see it. It's the bottom. Yeah, kind of like 0.5. You want to do anything which is going to break it. Cool. So we're going to just go back to our scene. Oh, wait. Unapplied, revert. Didn't want to apply any of that. Cool. So he's applied. He's a humanoid, which is all excellent. So we're going to take splurge, and I'm just going to drop him in here before. So basically, at this point, we just want to export him as a VRM. And then we're going to add Springboard, we re-import him back in. So just going to adjust that scale, 10, 10, 10. And if anyone's wondering what the blocks is all about, blocks is basically, my way of leveraging his style. What is it? There we go. that's what's happening. I put them in a weird place. So I kind of like using blocks, kind of like get the scale out. I find it's a lot more useful than just writing it in. So I can kind of get a feel for the sizes of things and everything else. It does help. So yeah, and maybe we don't want it to be like totally naked. I'll just stick like stick a little material on him, just so he's got some kind of colorization on there, right? To loom, test mat, sweet. I'm just gonna take this off. Get some colorization, maybe around it. Let's get metallic. Do a lot of metallics. I'm gonna just get smooth. Come on, sweet, awesome. And the tail and stuff like that. So that's all together. And this is great. Super. So just going to take our little character here, make sure it's fully selected. And in the same way, we can make a VRM, which is going to make a VRM really simply. VRM, export to VRM, and merge 2, tab, V2, tab, me. Let me just go for a CCO, this is a community build. Export it into to where all the other ones are. Cool. Splurge 2, Splurge 2T, Yarp, that'll do. Fantastic. Cool, awesome. So now we're gonna hide him quickly, and we're gonna basically re-import him. So import from VRM, the Splurge 2T, right? And that's about right, that's the good timings. So if you open it up, it's gonna create where our prefab is gonna go. I'm gonna stick it with all of the other ones. It's a nice place for it to be. Fantastic. And when you have so many prefabs, as I kind of tend to these files, just all prefab is nice, and I'll get it in there. Fantastic. Here he is. And we see he's a VRM. It's got a bunch of other data informations and everything else that we have. So that is all good. It's happy days. Now we're going to stick him in our scene back in. You can see that it's looking a little bit different. Awesome. So how do we get these spring bones in? Look there, comes in our secondary things. So if I go to secondary, I've got root bones and collider groups. These are the important things for the spring bones. Spring bones is this stuff here. We'll mess around with these in a second. So which one is my root? Go to my armature, and it's usually an armature, whatever you call your skeleton, Mixamo rig. And we went for the hips. So we didn't really name anything. So it's going to be bone, 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 which is kind of like, all right for this. If you have a lot more complex system, I recommend like naming as you're kind of going across, but this is absolutely fine. So we go to secondary. We're going to take our bone, so the root, and we're going to create our list in the root bones. So here in the root bones, we're going to add to the list. We're going to basically drag our root bone into it. Awesome. That's done. It's kind of like it's as simple as that, really. And then we to kind of see what it works. If we go to play, PPDT, any second now, scene. Oh, wait. Gotta select the right model. Hold on. Woo! It's moving. We can see that we could have done some weight painting a little bit better, especially towards the end. It's kind of getting there. But if we do this, it's kind of the positioning is all right, so it's not too crazy. But we probably should put some colliders and stuff like that in there, just gonna make it work. But yeah, it's just very cool. So just go back to stop play. So we're back in, and when we go to our secondary, and remember we had that collider groups there, which is fantastic. So we're just gonna open one up, and right now we have none. And then we want to place a collider probably around the hip. So why don't just place it on the hip bone? That seems to be like a good place. We can stick it in there, and we basically make a little kind of circle in there. So add component, and look for collider. Fast spring bone collider is the one we want. So spring bone collider rather than any other ones. Yeah, I think it's the one I used last time. Yeah, cool. So the collider is in, and if maybe it's not. Oh wait, I've lost it. So did I actually put it in? Let me just do that quickly. And mixing my hips, add component. I'm pretty sure that's the collider. Yes, it is. So I've added the wrong one. It's just gonna fade it off. Sweet. So we got a little collider, the little kind of circle right there. You can kind of see it. It's there, but it's not very big. So let us get it a little bit bigger. And we probably want it to be. I want it to be like a bit more forward. And you can either move it here or you can maneuver it here, whichever you find easier. Because you want it to be sort of kind of stopping it to kind of twisting all the way out. Maybe like I want it even lower down a bit. Fantastic. Cool. Awesome. So we got that little collider there, and that is in there. And we're gonna go back to our secondary. And here we have none. We are basically gonna drag our group into there. So grab, drag. Cool. Fantastic. So we have root bones and we have external rigs. And it's kind of same stuff. Generally, people saying like, don't do more than 2 colliders, and I probably agree with that, because it can get very messy. And you can get like some of these VRMs to be like hyper messy with hundreds of colliders and things like that, and it just kind of takes more to render. So if you're doing something like in VRoid, people do it for presentation sake, where it's just literally one avatar that they're doing stuff, that kind of like makes sense. But if we're doing it like we do to run through metaverse spaces, to experience metaverse in new ways, yeah, you probably don't want that. But remember we talked about like that stiffness, force, gravity power, gravity direction, all of those things. We can start playing around with those right now. So it's the same thing again. Take our Spurge T, have all the stuff there. We're gonna go to play. Scene. And which one is selected? Collider works nicely, doesn't go anywhere else. Tail is a little bit too out there. So let me just stop that. Just adjust it in. So it's a tail. So I want it to be less gravity because it's got muscles. Just kind of holding it up, or whatever muscles are in the metasphere. Want to be like a much stiffer. Cool. And there should be like more drag force because it's big, right? Cool. And do the same thing again. Press play. So a lot of building stuff is, just troubleshooting, just testing things out, just testing, as we all have with building worlds and stuff like that. Yeah, much better. Nice. Still kind of getting a little bit forward front, but he'll be running. He'll be fine. going forward. So maybe just I'm gonna add more drag to kind of prevent that. And secondary, more drag, a little bit less of gravity. Cool. So I'm feeling it's gonna work. Let's do it. Let's do it for Biscuit. So we're gonna select our little model. We're back in stuff, and basically we're just gonna re-export it as a VRM. So if I go to export to VRM, it's all selected. We have all of our deets. Ideally, we'll get like a little pick and stuff like that with these. And we're just gonna export it. And I'll keep it a little one so we know where we're putting stuff in. So I know how we come down. So VRM splurge 2T1 VRM, happy days. And let's go for save. Cool. Now the big moment of truth. Is it gonna work in a metasphere? Hopefully it will. We can did our best, but yeah. So this is it for Unity, and let's just jump into metasphere basically online. So they're in Mixamo, and let me make sure you follow along with me. Share the screen. Change windows. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. Here we go. Mixamo, go live. So as we kind of mentioned before, there's multiple ways of trying out VRMs. I like to use GitHub because I can update files and all of that. And also you can, you can make one or two, as the case is. I need to tidy it up at some point, but yeah. So all of these are kind of things that are in the process of being kind of created and stuff like that. And then when they're finished, I've minted them. So these are all pre-finished things. So they all have little breaks in them and stuff like that. So they're not perfect. So here we're gonna just add a file, upload file, and I'm just gonna drag that VRM we've just made into it. So if anyone remembers the name of it, splurge 2.1, I believe. Bang. Fantastic. Commit. Let me just check on the size. Nice. See that's 528 kilobytes. If we add a texture to it, it's less than 2 megabytes. That's the kind of size I like to see. It just means we can have a bunch of these things doing stuff in the same space. So it'll be cool. And let me just set up this crucial little point. What's happening? Oh, there we go. OBS is really tripping my computer out today. I don't know why. It's trying to kidnap my mouse. Better move. Data notes. Sweet, yeah. Cool. So if I go here and I'll find there we go, that's splurge. And so now we're going to do basically a monoverse run. I'm going to jump into world. I'm going to post a bunch of VRMs for you to kind of try out. I'll post one from the last week that we've had, kind of finished off, and I'll add some of the new ones, and hopefully we can have some fun. We'll just find oh, there we go. So I'm sure I prepped some stuff. Bamf. So copies, pasties, copy paste, and there'll be splurge 2. I'm just gonna. So Mona, where was we? So let me say, where should we jump in? If there's any preferences, time to shout is now. You know what? I haven't been to the big labyrinth for a while. That's Aeon's place, isn't it? Yeah. what is it called? The big labyrinth we built. Is it external? Is it Genesis place? Let me just. Yes, maze. Yeah, let's jump into the maze. It's got some like nice HDRs in here and stuff like that, so we can kind of enter that in there. Throw paints at the virtual canvas. Make sure I'm recording everything. And it's remarkable how much like OBS slows the whole system down. Like it's just something that's usually like super quick. You know, you add this recording software on, it's like crunch. Let's get through like GPUs and stuff. So in the meantime, I'm gonna basically copy paste all of these things, and we can see what we can have. So here is a VRM from last week. And here is that VRM with new color code. So underneath that, and here's the VRM tester and today. So there's 4 VRMs. Feel free to grab any of those, and I'm going to post a Hangout space in a second. As soon as it loads, as soon as it loads into Metaverse. Any moment now. Any moment now. Maybe what if I close VR? That takes usually a lot of stuff. Let me just that should speed it up with. Yeah, no, it's moved in there. Boom, boom. This is like when we do the musical chairs, sing amongst ourselves and everything else. Come on, Metaverse. Come on, Metaverse. Sure, we can get there. What else can I close? Let me just save and close Blender. Maybe that'll help. Some really help is the OBS, but here we go. Fantastic. Okay, folks. So that's the guy I did earlier. And boom. You can see he's got the little tail that's going to working, but let's try our new guy. And hopefully this will work. I mean, oopsie daisy, escape, work. Nope. There we go. Import. Copy paste. And now it all breaks apart. Awesome. Let's host a Hangout. And here's a Hangout note in the chat. If you grab that, grab a VRM, join me in there, and let's see. Let's run through all these kind of like new emotes that we have and see what works and what doesn't. Oop. I want to do pop count. I want to do pop hunt. Come on. Huh. I'm just stuck on here. Here we go. Fantastic. So tail is kind of working, right? Awesome. Yeah, like there's a link there in the chat. So try and grab a VRM and join me. A little bit misbehaving though. But yeah, so we got like the character. It's got a kind of big fat kitsune-like tail. There we go. Should see it better from this angle. Put both. close anything that's kind of like weighing it down on my unit. Save Unity as well. Save something better. Huh. A little bit stuck in the metaverse, so here we go. So yeah, if anyone wants to jump in, like otherwise I'm just gonna do a circle. Or if you're having difficulty, like let me know. Because obviously I don't know. Oh, still loading is free as well. Oh gosh, maybe I should have went for a smaller space. I mean, this one's usually kind of quite fun because you can get lots of people in here. Ah, oh, here we go. We got someone. Hey, hello. Oh, guest. Oh wow, sweet, awesome. Hey, you, it's me. Woo! Right. I wonder if you can kind of hover with a tail. That looks pretty cool. Pretty zen, right? That's awesome. Sweet. Yeah. So the tail's gonna like do their own thing. We kind of like tailed warriors from from the space. And and you can basically like the whole kind of trial of error of these VRMs. You're getting them through various kind of positions and stuff like that. So if I go to like Roomba, is the tail going to move at all? Like how's that going to react? Is it too low? Maybe I need to like change that weight painting. Maybe I need to add more gravity or less gravity and stuff like that. Kind of all of those kind of things. You kind of basically see you're trying to break it, in the troubleshooting, so you can kind of like get it more established. I go hip hop, like that kind of works. Yeah, or like when you jump, come on. I think just OBS is preventing me from doing stuff smoothly on my end. But yeah, that's nice. The tail's kind of like doing the leaps. And yeah. Oh, that's too much tail seeing from the side. Fantastic. And whoops, daisy. Yeah, I've got OBS troubles, son. But it works. Small model. And go. Woo! Straight to the wall. Hmm. Fantastic. Kind of just like how it kind of jumps in and out. Sweet. And just stick on the meditations. Pam, pam, pam. Is it going to hit wall before that? Maybe next time I should try a smaller space. But nonetheless, like here's Splurge having a little walk around and everything else. So with that, I think we've concluded. I dream of spring bones, and I hope after this you'll be dreaming of spring bones too. How all of them can interact, work together to create like these kind of like weird and wonderful characters. to kind of create new worlds, new realities, new metaspheres, to populate all these worlds that we've built with something that's interesting and fun and kind of special. And like I recommend kind of checking that beginning stuff when I was talking about different kind of character builds and stuff. Um, all of those are quite important in the way they combine together, in the way you can like kind of add a mesh to a character and then just kind of like add it to the rig as opposed to even like rigging it with a spring bone. So it kind of just allows you to get like a lot more richness between these characters than otherwise you would have, and kind of really breaking out from the whole kind of humanoid thing. Like, and yeah, and it's just on a mission. Woo! Cool, awesome. And with that, I will conclude today's stuff. Next week, so next week we are having a week off. It's 4th of July. Happy holidays for all my American friends. And we'll be coming back on the 11th. And then we'll be concluding on the 18th. However, if you want to do some stuff in your free time and everything else, feel free to send me some things. I'll have a look at them gladly. And also, next time we're going to start working on Monatar. So any ideas, any kind of things, we have 2 weeks to kind of really kind of think through of what would be a super awesome Monatar, a Mona avatar that may be an addition or replacement for the one that we have at the moment, like the generic robot, something which is like super low poly, something that's kind of like can work. Are we going to break out of human mold? Maybe we're going to go too much human. Maybe something kind of simplistic, maybe something AI inspired. So yeah, like if everyone kind of like has a little bit of thought about that, feel free to kind of like shoot me a DM, message or anything about that beforehand, or you can wait for a DM. We can all kind of build together. You can shout it to me when I'm in the vert, and we can create some things that hopefully will be something really cool, exciting, and be making a complex Monatar from scratch to the end, incorporating all of these things we've learned. So kind of like we started with the squiggles, super simple. We're gonna make something really complex and kind of high quality. And yeah, like really hope to see you all next time. Thank you very much for coming. Peace.